and came back afterwards once QA had gotten a hold of it and had to go, wow, okay. We need to think about the motivations a little bit. So at this point, you're keeping a list of the primary characters you're making. This is important for art. They're going to need to know who these people are. They're going to be making concepts for them. Audio is going to have to start thinking about what they're going to be like. The primary characters too, we were often thinking that what kind of breadth are we covering here? Are we hitting the right notes? Do we have a sufficient spread? The locations, where are the major locations that this plot is going to take place? Do we have a good array? Like, is everything taking place in a city sewer? That's not a good idea. Sewers are boring. And also then art can start thinking about, okay, you gotta. You can see the picture in the background. It's an elven ruin, and sort of came up with a very brief description of what an elven ruin might look like, and the artist sort of took it and starts writing with it, creating these concepts, which he then sends back to me, and then suddenly they're very evocative, very emotional, and you start to have that collaborative process where it's the first design document, one of many, but the idea is that as they throw out the first one, and other people, other disciplines start generating their ideas and their concepts and sending them back to you, that you take that sort of, what they're creating, you look at it and it inspires you, and you create a second design document and a third one, and it's very iterative. And you're sort of keeping in for us anyway, we're keeping an idea of what our expected paths are through the story, the rewards that the player can be expecting to be earning, because that's something to consider too. Sometimes, I remember we went through one entire design document phase where we hadn't thought about the rewards, and then somebody asked us, well, okay, you've got sort of an emotional motivation for the player, but what is he getting out of doing these plots? And we're like, oh, gold. No, there are other rewards. People play games for different reasons, which we'll get to. Once you've got the concept process going, you've got design documents being made, we're going into implementation. What we do now, smaller companies maybe aren't going to have the chance to do this, but what we do, we split up the overall story into discrete chunks, and we hand them to a primary writer and a tech designer. Tech design for us is that there are people who do the implementation. They're the scripters. They use the scripting language to sort of make the plot go, as far as we're concerned. Writers sometimes do some tech design. There's a little bit of gray area in between, because I'll often script my own dialogue, but I wouldn't do the scripting for, oh, this item has to be given to this character now, or make this character walk across the room. That's a tech designer. So we would have a primary writer and a tech designer sort of to get an area, like for Knights of the Old Republic. I was given the planet Corp, which was a Sith planet where the Sith ruins were located, and really very little else. The idea was that you're sort of given sort of the meta plot requirements of that area, of that character, like say a party member, and then it's up to the writer to sort of proceed from there to design exactly the specifics. Now, not every writer is going to be a level designer or quest designer. Not everybody gets enjoyment out of that. We have junior writers as well who some of them are of course have ambitions to be quest designers, but some of them just like being handed saying, here's this character, here's this quest, write this, and they will happily go and write that, and very often come back halfway through and say, this design isn't working. Like, well, you should design it yourself then. But no. Probably not that easy. But the idea is that if you have a writer who has their own little piece of the story, their own area, what we have found is that increases their ownership. Now, it'd be nice if they could remain that way from the beginning to the end. If you have long development cycles, what we have often found is that people will move between projects, and I think I am the only writer on Dragon Age who's been there since the very beginning. But even so, For the people who feel that this is their area, whether or not they were there from the initial design phase or not, they have ownership, and ownership is important. If you lose ownership, you are turning out a product. And if I can say anything about what Bioware does, the thing that Bioware excels at, it is we believe that even if our games aren't for everyone, that those people who do play our games will see that we make our games with a lot of love. We love what we do. If we end up making something that doesn't have any love in it, you will see it. It will feel cold, it will feel sterile. I've been through, there was a point earlier in Dragon Age where we were sort of, felt like we were being very methodical in how we were going about what we were doing, and it wasn't maybe something we really believed in, and we had to stop and go, no, we need to change what we're doing, and it needs to be something that's important to us as creators. For me personally, the way this works, a writer, it would be nice if, like for a book or a movie, a writer is the creator, right? Essentially, I mean, the people that will come in afterwards and will muck about. But a writer in a video game isn't necessarily the creator. You're working with a lot of requirements. You're working with the idea of restrictions of technology, of restrictions of resources. You need to incorporate those things. However, it's important to remember that writers and designers need to be creators as much as they can. That's if you give them that leeway, you will get it back in the end product. I wish, from my interactions with other companies, I mean, I've been with Bioware my entire time in the industry. My interactions with people who work for other companies, they say that that isn't always so in other companies, and that sometimes the idea of story and writing and good design are sort of treated as, well, it would be nice to have. And I think that's a little unfortunate. I hate to think of that is a luxury, because frankly, I think that's what sells Bioware games. So, Nature of the Beast. I'm going to talk you through a part of Dragon Age, one of those sections that was given to me, and we've talked about this particular plot publicly previously. Dan Tudge was very recently brought people through the sort of the end part of the plot, the big decision that was made and how it affects the game. So it's been pretty spoiled, so I don't feel bad about going through this. But the idea was that I was part of the story that came to me was that we needed a location for players who had chosen the Dalish Elf origin story to return to. Everybody who has an origin story, one of the requirements was that they needed a place in the game that they could go back to. If you're a dwarf, you need to be able to go back to the dwarf city that you started. If you're a human, you need to be able to go back to a human city. Same thing with elf. A Dalish elf is an elf in this world. The elves were once, if you imagine the Tolkien elves, they were proud, immortal, magical, and then humanity came and defeated their homeland, enslaved them, and they lost their immortality. They lost that which made them special. And when they were finally, freed after 1,000 years of slavery, they had lost their language and everything that made them elven. And eventually they formed a homeland called the Dales, and I'll show you the story is sort of imparted in a scene I'll play for you. But sort of the idea was that these elves are not the Tolkien-style elves anymore. That there are elves that sort of live amongst humanity that have completely forgotten what they once were, but that these are the elves that sort of gypsy-like try to claw back that which was once special about them, and sort of wander because they refuse to live with humanity. And so the idea was that I was handed, well, that I handed myself, I guess, was that the player needed to go to a Dalish clan of elves and request their aid against the Darkspawn threat. But